Hello and welcome back to TrendWatch777. So today we're going to be talking about Don Lemon being arrested. So former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested in connection with an incident where anti-ICE protesters disrupted a service in Minneapolis. In a Minneapolis church, the protest took place on January 18th, 2026 at City Church in St. Paul, where protesters chanted ICE out and justice for Renee Good, referring to a 37-year-old American woman who was fatally shot by an ICE officer in Minneapolis. Lemon, who was covering immigration enforcement operation in the state, was arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles while covering the Grammy Awards. Couldn't they just I'm assuming they fought. I think he was in a hotel room and they arrested him at his hotel room. They just want to make sure they have maximum coverage to make sure you get the maximum embarrassment. Okay, his attorney, Abe Lowell, stated that Lemon was acting solely in his journalistic role and that his constitutionally protective work in Minneapolis was no different than what he has always done. Lemon's arrest has drawn criticism from various political figures, including Donald Trump, who has called for his arrest over the church incident. So I guess Trump is upset that it took them so long to get that arrest because they wanted to arrest him earlier, sooner, but there was two judges who didn't think that they had enough evidence or sufficient evidence to arrest him. So now I'm going to switch over here from this article, and we're going to watch a report done by CNN. Let me get up the video here and going to go over there to listen to it. So shout out to CNN for this video.
Former CNN anchor and a former colleague of mine and friend, Don Lemon, has been taken into custody by federal agents, according to his attorney. It comes after Lemon covered the protest earlier this month, dozens of anti-ICE protesters rushing inside of a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, Don has said that he was just there as a journalist, photographing the incident as a journalist, asking questions as a journalist after the protesters went in, and has been very clear he was not part of the protest group. In a statement, Don Lemon's attorney says, quote, "This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court." Now, I just want to quickly let you know, Don Lemon spoke with Allison Camerata, another former colleague and friend from CNN, who now works for Scripps News, about the church incident. Let's go to what she told us just moments ago.
So he said that he was covering a protest. This is the St. Paul church. The protesters had reason to believe that the pastor there was an ICE agent. And so Don, the way Don described it to me is that he was doing what we do. He was covering a protest. He wasn't conspiring with them. He knew that they were going to be protesting something. He wasn't in on their plans, he says, beforehand, which is one of the things that the DOJ has suggested. And then he stayed outside, he says. The protesters went inside the church. And when he realized that the protest was unfolding inside the church, he then went inside. And so, obviously our legal experts can describe whether that's trespassing on private property. But either way, that's a misdemeanor. And, the idea that Don Lemon, as a journalist, has now been arrested is just in an entirely different category.
Now, I have some more breaking news. We have just learned that another independent journalist who is very popular here and very well known here in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, Georgia Fort, has also been arrested. We have now seen video of her inside of her home telling us that there are FBI agents outside of her door demanding that she come out. She said that they had a warrant, that they had gone to a grand jury. So this is brand new breaking news. She is describing what is happening, saying that the federal agents say that they had a warrant, that there was a grand jury involved, and that she must come out to be arrested. She said that she spoke to her attorney. Her attorney advised her to go with them. And that is exactly what she did, and that she was taken to the
Yeah, so it's a good thing that she did contact her attorney before um she opened the door and left with them, because who knows what in case you disappear or something, Lord forbid. But in these days anything can happen. So it's good that I'm glad that she did reach out to her attorney as well. And I'm glad that her attorney did advise her to go with them, so, but at least someone knows. At least they didn't go busting in the door and just, yank her out there.
Whipple building. So now there are two journalists who have been arrested by the FBI, by federal agents, after the incident that happened at a church. Joining me now are CNN's Kara Scannell and our chief media analyst, Brian Stelter. So, Kara, what are we learning about the situation with Don Lemon?
Well, Sarah, we do know that Don Lemon was arrested last night in Los Angeles in the 11 o'clock hour local time. I'm told by a source that he was in a hotel lobby on his way to an event related to covering the Grammy Awards, and that is when he was arrested by the agents and taken into custody. It is expected he will appear in court in Los Angeles this morning, and that the charges against him will be unsealed. Now, as we've been discussing, Lemon was part of a larger attempt by the Justice Department to bring charges against a number of people, some from the protesting group, last week, and that the judge had rejected that complaint against some of the individuals, including Don Lemon. He had suggested if DOJ wanted to go forward, they might want to look toward going before a grand jury. So that would follow the process that played out, where the judge did not believe that there was sufficient evidence, but if a grand jury did, then that would be the route that the Justice Department could take. It's possible that they have returned an indictment, though we have not yet seen the document. We have not seen any updates from the court about what this instrument is that Lemon was charged in, and specifically what he was charged with. We do know, though, that some of the protesters who were there, who were not journalists, but the protesters were charged with going into the church and disrupting this religious service, violating laws related to that. So it's possible that that will be the similar charge.
Right. So I'm going to read to you what one of the laws can possibly be, with the FACE Act. Shortly after this video, I'm gonna get there.
Charge that Lemon will face. All this will become much more clear, though, once these documents are unsealed, and we do that. Expect that to happen this morning. As this will then continue to play out. I mean, as this new arrest tells us, Lemon was arrested last night in Los Angeles. This other journalist was arrested this morning. If there are other arrests related to this, because not everyone was charged in that initial complaint that the Justice Department was trying to charge, they could be playing out this morning. So it may be an instance where we do see additional arrests, and then we do eventually see this charging document and understand what charges they are specifically facing. As you said, Lemon's lawyer, Abby Lowell, says that he will fight this vigorously, and that it is not unprecedented for journalists to be charged, but it is also very unusual for journalists to be charged because of their First Amendment right to cover events and certain protections that journalists have to participate in capturing news. So there is definitely going to be a big fight here to come on behalf of Don Lemon and most likely this other journalist as they fight back on these charges, which his lawyer is saying is unprecedented attack on the First Amendment. And as we have seen, the president and his attorney general have gone after people that Trump does see as his perceived enemies. Don Lemon is particularly one of those. Sarah?
Yeah, we know that Don Lemon is particularly one of those. Simply for the fact, when Lemon was at CNN, they covered the Trump administration for first term 24/7, and so and the thing that was said, during the broadcast, got to Trump and like they didn't let up on him during his first term. It was like you can turn it on any time of the day on CNN, and they was talking about Trump, 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 Trump. So it's no surprise that Lemon, as well as CNN, is on Trump's radar that he doesn't like.
Sarah?
Yeah. Kara Scannell, thank you for your reporting and getting us caught up to speed. We are expecting to see any time now this morning or perhaps into the afternoon the charges, because this has to go through court and it has to be made public. Brian Stelter, now that you are learning that there are two journalists who have been taken into custody, one of whom we know well, our colleague and friend Don Lemon, the other who is very well known here as an independent journalist, she also saying that she was taken into custody, Georgia Fort. I saw her just the other day. She was covering the Ilhan Omar incident. What does that tell you about what the Trump administration is doing here? I mean, the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason.
A disturbing escalation against reporting in America. And I would also put it in the framework of protests. This is part of an ongoing pressure campaign against protests, especially the kind of provocative anti-Trump protest action that we have seen makes the administration so uncomfortable. And frankly, makes some voters very uncomfortable. This is an action, this arrest of Don Lemon, this arrest of this independent journalist who is live streaming and reporting in Minnesota. This is something that some MAGA loyalists have been demanding. They've been wanting to see it happen. When Trump promised retribution, this is the kind of retribution that some of his voters, not all, but some of his voters wanted to see. And I think that is, for better or for worse, some of the context for what we're seeing this morning. In this, the First Amendment is meant to protect both a reporter's right to report, but also a congregation's right to worship. So legal experts might say this is somewhat complicated, although Lemon said all along he was there as a reporter, not as an activist. And he did a really important job showing people, all of us now who can watch the video, what happened inside that church. I want to back up to that Sunday morning. That intrusion into City's church was sincerely shocking to many, many millions of Americans, myself included. People, saw that video, they saw Lemon's video, and they were uncomfortable by what happened inside that church. The idea that worship service was disrupted by protesters. And now there's a very interesting debate about whether the protesters were right or whether they were wrong to go into the church.
Yeah, so what do you think? Do you think they were right, or do you think they were wrong to go into the church and disrupt the Sunday morning church service, even though they found out that one of the pastors is an ICE agent himself? See, when I first heard the story, I thought that perhaps they was having some type of meeting where they was housing ICE agents, or having a meeting with different members of the congregation, and they was trying to recruit members, and that's what I first thought when I first heard this story. But that just isn't the case. It was Lennon was just there covering the story. That he knew there was protesters going to be there, but he was not involved in the planning and in the acting out any of that. He was just under doing his journalistic duties. That's all that was.
But that is a political debate, and that's a debate about what forms of protest are effective. The Trump administration's moving that political debate into the legal arena and wanting to take it into court and have a court fight. And we know there have been these attempts to arrest some of the other protesters last week who were there. And now we have these arrests of these reporters who documented the scene. I'm reminded of what one of Lemon's friends, Jennifer Welch, said to her on a podcast. Lemon was talking to Welch, and Welch said to Lemon, quote, "You are a prize for them, an independent, gay, black, happy, successful man. And this is an attempt to intimidate and beat you down." So that's how Lemon's friends see this situation, this attempt to charge him, and now this actual arrest of Lemon. He's in jail in LA now, as an attempt to target another Trump foe. And let me also quote, Sarah, our colleague Larry Madowo, who's based in Nairobi, who covers Africa for CNN. He wrote on X a few minutes ago, "This arrest is a gift to authoritarian governments worldwide who can now justify arresting journalists they don't like because even America does it."
That is stark. It is reality. There is, as we have spoken about, the potential of a major chilling effect, although I certainly am not going to shut my mouth. I know that you won't either. There are many journalists that will continue to call a spade a spade. But there is a definite fear here, especially for those who are independent journalists who are smaller, who don't have an apparatus around them as they are out in the streets, or if they go into buildings, whether or not they
By the
are
way, Sarah,
protected,
if you don't mind
and
me
whether they
interrupting.
have the means. Sure.
We have heard, by the way, from Pam Bondi moments ago. She says Lemon's arrested. She mentions Georgia Fort. She mentions 2 other individuals, she says, all arrested in connection with what happened at the church. So the Attorney General now confirming these arrests. She says 4 people were taken into custody total.
And we know that one person who was arrested, a protester, was a former NAACP president locally here, Nakima Levy-Pounds. She was let out, and she is disputing that they went into church without permission. She said they had permission. We will see how this goes forward, but it is a stunning development that now we know at least 2 journalists have been arrested by the DOJ because of their coverage of a protest. We'll see what happens next.
Right. So shout out again to CNN for that story. So as the stories developed, you will hear them talking about the FACE Act. So I'm going to read to you what the FACE Act is, which is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Interests Act. That's FACE, or the Access Act. Okay, these are the numbers. And okay, now it is a United States law that was signed by President Bill Clinton in May of 1994, which prohibits the following 3 things. Number 1, the use of physical force, threat of physical force, or physical obstruction to intentionally injure, intimidate, interfere with, or attempt to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person who is obtaining an abortion. That's number 1. Number 2 is the use of physical force, threat of physical force, or physical obstruction to intentionally injure, intimidate, interfere with, or attempt to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person who is exercising or trying to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of worship. And so that number 2, the second thing I think they're trying to push, especially the DOJ, is that they was intimidating or they was interfere the church service and stopping the preacher, the members, the congregation from exercising their First Amendment rights to freedom of religion. Okay, and then the third thing, the intentional damage or destruction of a reproductive health care facility or a place of worship. So this story is definitely developing, and the last that I um didn't hear is that I'm assuming he's still in the custody. I haven't heard about him making any bond as of yet. And so, yes, people is like upset and they really don't like what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Y'all just put in the comments how you feel about this whole situation. Was the protesters wrong for entering into interfering with the Sunday worship service? So yeah, okay. So y'all be blessed, and I'll see you in my next video.